From the WKYT studios in Lexington, this is Kentucky Newsmakers with Bill Bryant.
Good morning from WKYT News. Hope you're having a great weekend. It was a long and lively election year in Kentucky. We'll be talking about that on this morning's edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. The U.S. Senate race was at the top of the ballot, and Republican Senator Mitch McConnell convincingly won re-election by a margin that even many in his own campaign found surprising. Herald Leader political writer Sam Youngman returned home to Kentucky after years of covering politics in Washington, and during this campaign he made several appearances with us and also on national TV to explain Kentucky to everybody else. I don't know how easy that is to do. Sam, welcome. It's good to see you.
It's good to be with you.
You said all along that you never saw Secretary of State Allison Grimes' campaign really hit a stride. Did McConnell keep her from being able to break through and define who she was and introduce herself to Kentucky?
I think so. I think what you saw here were two just textbook examples. For McConnell, it was a textbook example of how to define your opponent, and from Allison Grimes' campaign, it was an example of how to get defined. You know, they conceded the time period when Senator McConnell was preoccupied with the Republican primary challenger, Matt Bevin, and in that time, I looked it up yesterday, one of the super PACs allied with Senator McConnell started running ads tying Allison Grimes to Barack Obama in June 2013. That's a month before she got in the race. By the time she was ready to start campaigning, I would say at least a third of voters already knew her and knew her in a negative connotation.
27% is the approval rating of President Obama from a poll a week ago, the Bluegrass poll done for WKYT and the Herald Leader. When you look at that, I mean, that really was a millstone around her neck to the extent that they could tie her to the president.
No, there's no question. And that's reflected here, what happened nationally. It was a bad night for Democrats around the country, and the blame right now is all going to the White House. Now, I will say that I think it was more severe here, the president's unpopularity, and I think that probably accounts for the enormous margin that we ended up seeing on Tuesday night.
What was the key issue here? Was it coal? Was it a change in the direction in Washington?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of two things. I think first and foremost it was what we were just talking about, just disapproval of the president, disapproval of the president's policies. Exit polling showed that the majority of Americans now believe the country is going in the wrong direction. That means it's going to be a bad night for whoever the incumbent party is in the White House. I think the other side was McConnell's message was two-pronged. The other part of that prong was, make me majority leader, and I'll be in the Senate looking out for Kentucky every single day. One of the most common things I heard as I traveled the state over the last 6 months was, I'm not crazy about Mitch McConnell, but I like that leadership position. And I think he did a good job of selling that.
First time since Alvin Barkley was the Senate Majority Leader.
1947.
Of course, he was a Democrat, and that was going into, he became vice president under Harry S. Truman. But it wields a lot of influence. It will be interesting to see how McConnell uses that influence to the benefit of Kentucky, won't it? Oh,
there's no question. I think, you know, one of the things you can look for almost immediately is Senator McConnell was putting forth a lot of bills in the last year to try and gut funding for the EPA, to try and stop what Republicans believe is a war on coal. I think you can expect that to be a big part of his agenda. You know, one of the fascinating things to me about this race was that McConnell ran simultaneously as the chief thorn in the side of President Obama, but also as a deal maker, a guy who'd been instrumental in getting the debt ceiling standoff resolved. So I think, you know, that balancing act that he was able to achieve in this last year, it was good preparation for what he's going to have to do going forward.
Well, he and Biden, the vice president, occasionally go into a back room and work things out, right?
It's absolutely right. I mean, if you look at the last 4 major standoffs in Washington between Democrats and Republicans, it was Senator McConnell who came in at the last minute and really sort of put the train back on the tracks. You know, one of the ads that they ran this cycle, which I thought was a very effective ad, was all these Washington broadcasters, and I'm talking about guys like Chris Matthews, who are no fan of Senator McConnell's, and they were saying things like he was the adult in the room. Can you imagine if he wasn't there? And I think that, you know, for a lot of independent voters, it was that deal-making ability that really put him over the top.
What is next for Allison Grimes? At 35, obviously she has had to have collected a lot of IOUs from the Democratic Party in that she got into that race and she ran very hard.
She did. You know, I don't know. I think a closer margin and the sky's, you know, the future belongs to her. With the margin being what it was, I don't know. I don't know how severely damaged her brand is going forward. If we look at this poll, which shows about half of Kentuckians say right off the bat they don't want her to run for governor. And you know as well as I do, that's the rumor we've been hearing for a while now. That was that she would turn around, get in the governor's race. These numbers don't look good for that prospect.
And those numbers tell us, they're saying what, only about a third would even...
33% said yes, she should run. 50% said no. That's 50%. And one thing I would caution you, this poll showed McConnell winning by 5 points. He won by 15. So, half of Kentucky voters saying they don't want her to run is the best case scenario.
If you have envisioned being in the U.S. Senate and you thought for some weeks that you had a chance of being there and tasted that and had Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and other people in the state campaigning for you, does the idea of going back and running for re-election to Secretary of State seem to have a little appeal, would you think?
I would think so. I mean, I think, she's been to the highest of highs. She's been, she had Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader's phone number. She could call him whenever she needed something. She's been to the, these great fundraisers in L.A. and Martha's Vineyard, and now it's sort of come back down to earth. Losing is never fun, and when you've been this close to the mountaintop, only to have it taken away from you, I think it's got to hurt significantly.
The only Democratic ticket for governor out there right now is Jack Conway and Sandy Overly. Is there potential that someone might look at her as a running mate going into the May primary?
I'm not sure that's the case now. I think if you'd said a week before the election, would Allison Lonergan Grimes make a good running mate for a gubernatorial ticket, the answer would have been across the board, yes. Now when you look at the margins, 111 of 120 counties voted for Senator McConnell. Her home county of Mason County. Fayette County, she did 18,000 votes less than Bruce Lunsford did, and Bruce Lunsford was not liked in Lexington. I think anybody looking to build a ticket right now is going to have to look at these numbers and think long and hard about what she might bring to the table.
Other takeaways from election night?
I keep coming back to the margin. I think we were all blown away. I know that Senator McConnell's internals, they built into those internals worst case turnout scenarios. So if there was a repeat of what we saw in 2012, then they would be prepared for it. Building on that model, they crossed into 50% about 2 weeks ago. So really it was us. It was us in the media who I think were making this more of a race than it turned out to be. And some of that was because of the polling. It looked like a closer race. We went to these events with the Clintons and saw thousands of people really sort of cheering for Senator McConnell's head. And it certainly seemed like there was something in the air for her. But I think ultimately, as we talked about throughout the race, it was just too tough an environment for her to ever really have that much of a chance.
Well, we're 6 months away from the gubernatorial primary. Ready to go?
No rest for the wicked, right?
That's right. It won't be long, but the ads are clear from the air for now. All right. Thank you, Sam Youngman. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And we're back on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers in just a moment. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers from WKYT. I'm Bill Bryant. Lexington Mayor Jim Gray went into this election year fully aware that voters had thrown out the last two mayors after just one term. During the course of the year, he had to backtrack on a plan for a redesigned Rupp Arena in a surrounding arts district. And in the middle of summer, the city was hit with a wave of violent crime. But after a campaign that saw a dozen debates between the two candidates who refrained from any mudslinging, voters decided to keep Mayor Gray on the job. Some have said the Lexington mayor's race pretty much set a gold standard for discussing issues without being personal or petty. Now Mayor Gray is off to another 4 years. He'll be working with a new council, a new vice mayor, and we welcome Mayor Gray back to Kentucky Newsmakers. Congratulations on your victory.
Bill, thanks.
Were you surprised with the margin? It was a large win for you.
Well, we were very encouraged by the vote, very encouraged by the turnout, and certainly by the results.
We saw such nasty races across the country, and we saw it here in Kentucky, obviously. How did you and Anthony Beatty manage to avoid that scene?
Well, I think first we respect each other, and we were able to elevate the debate. I believe I said at the last debate, I believe that we had 12 debates, Bill, as you said, and that was 5 more than Lincoln Douglas had in famous Lincoln Douglas debates of 1848.
All right.
So we gave the voters, though, I think what we did was we gave the voters an opportunity to really examine the issues, and that's what's relevant and important.
And you had a choice as to whether to do those debates. And as you know, in the U.S. Senate race, they could only agree to do one and avoided face-to-face confrontations. But you were the incumbent and agreed to a dozen debates. Some might say, what were you thinking, you know?
Well, I think that I said, I think earlier when we were talking that, you know, when on January 28th, when Anthony filed for the election, for the race, and Danny Mayer filed for the race, you know, some said, well, you know, Jim, you almost got a pass there. And I have to admit, you know, that might for a few days or time, that might have been convenient. But, you know, the founders of the country didn't intend it that way. They intended for us to be held accountable every 2 or 4 years, whatever the term is, and it keeps us on our toes. It really does keep us, it not just encourages, but it requires that candidates reach out and seek out the voters, citizens, and also the issues. So that's what we did.
Were there some things that you learned from Anthony Beatty over those months on the campaign trail?
Oh, absolutely. You know, if you're not learning from your opposition, then you're really not learning. I mean, it's simple that, and you're much more attentive to the issues. It's simple. You know, Henry Clay said something like this a long time ago. He said that the most powerful influence in mankind is competition. And if you think about it carefully, it does. It elevates us to a level of engagement, actually probing the issues, gaining knowledge, getting information and data that we might not otherwise do.
Word got out last year that you had a high approval rating, and it seemed to scare off a lot of potential candidates. Now that you can be more candid, though, the election year gets off and rolling. You go up to Frankfort, the Rupp Arena rejection comes down from the lawmakers up there. Then there was this shooting spree and violence in the city in the summer when you were facing a former police chief. Were there times in the campaign that you got concerned about the way of things?
Well, I think if reporters, Bill, when you're a good reporter like you are, you always encourage that candidness. And candidly, I think all along the way, I acknowledge that we should be concerned when there is an elevated incident rate of violent crime. But I also quoted our police chief routinely, Chief Baston, who said, unless you're involved in an illegal activity, you have a very low chance of being involved in a violent crime. So Lexington, among peer cities our size, actually has the lowest violent crime rate in the country. So despite the incidents, what we have as a touchstone is a very, very competent and capable police force. And that's been the anchor for our city. Now, one of the things that's most attractive about Lexington is we are a safe city. And I said all along that we have 2 core values in our city, and that's number 1, public safety, and number 2, quality of life. And that leads us to the 3 goals, which is creating jobs, running government efficiently, and building a great American city. And I think that's what the voters confirmed, that we're on the right track, and let's stay on that track.
So you think going forward in the next 4 years, crime, you hope, will continue to decrease, public safety will be a priority?
Oh, public safety will always be a priority. It represents almost 60% of our budget every year.
Well, let's talk about the next 4 years. What are your priorities for Lexington?
Well, I think when you're on the right track, you do your best to stay on that track. We have some significant projects underway, significant plans underway. That includes for Lexington, in terms of our infrastructure, we have a major project with our consent decree. That's the EPA required improvement in our sewer system, our sanitary sewer system. That's been estimated at as much as $600 million. We're working hard. I meet every other week with the project team, myself, and we're working hard to keep that not just within budget, but below budget and also on schedule. We have other initiatives across the city, dealing with homelessness, dealing with affordable housing. Fortunately, we had a surplus, which we had to work hard to get in the last 3 years. And with that surplus, we've been able to make some investments. By improving efficiencies and making savings, we've been able to make investments in affordable housing, in an office for homelessness, in a new senior citizens center. We have some initiatives that we need still to take on, and this emerged in the campaign. You know, a lot of people are concerned about our historic old courthouse in the center of the city. You know, that just can't let it fall in on itself. So There's some infrastructure needs, there's some repairs that need to be done, and that's in the physical environment. But in terms of quality of life, our parks across the city could use improvements. So I'm looking forward to making strategic investments with the resources that we have today and engaging our citizens in this process. Because I think, you know, like any good business, you've got to save money sometimes in order to make money, and sometimes you've got to make investments in order to make money and sustain growth.
You indicated at one point you were sort of going back to the drawing board with Rupp Arena and putting that project on hold. Have you come up with a new way to go at that?
Well, I've said that when the time is right, the plan is ready. We examined as many as 9 different options, Bill, and the university and the city both said, you know, this is not a project that we need to put duct tape on, not a project that we need to put a Band-Aid around, that this is a major renovation project. And to do it right, we have to examine all the options. We had to examine all the options. We did that. 9 different options in order to come up with the best value. Now, the likely cost of the project, if the natural arc of inflation occurs, then it's likely that it would be increased. The cost would be increased over time. But today, we have a very competitive plan, and when the time is right, the plan's ready.
You did not conceal during the campaign that you support this lift tax.
Yes.
That is that the state and local governments would work together. It would allow local governments to raise a temporary local sales tax for a specific project for a specific length of time. It'd have to be passed by, obviously, Frankfurt, then passed by voters statewide, and then passed locally if a tax were to be enacted. Do you see that as part of the recipe for Rupp Arena?
Well, I'm not sure if it wouldn't be, you wouldn't pigeonhole a Rupp for that, or you wouldn't assign a Rupp project for that entirely. These projects across the country in cities where they've been employed have been able to be used for various projects, for a diversity of projects which improve the city and the quality of life. But what's important about it is it's just as American as apple pie. It gives people the right to vote, the chance to vote on very specific projects. And what it requires of leaders is that they actually put a plan together and then put it before the people for a vote. And they either the voters then either give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And these referendums in many cities have included multiple projects. It could include new fire stations, for example, or parks, for example. So it's not just bricks and mortar projects that are used, but they all have a focus on improving quality of life and therefore improving the economic potential and opportunity for the city.
As you know, Mayor, in 2008 there was a whole block of downtown that was raised for a project that was we all saw as a gleaming building that was to be center point. That has changed, gone through an evolution numerous times as to what the final building will look like. Right now, developer Dudley Webb says he's waiting for the city to allow him to bring in this huge crane to finish up the parking garage. He wants to try to get part of that done in time for the Breeders' Cup. Apparently Main Street would have to be closed for 42 hours. Is that being worked out?
Well, the crane, of course, the erection of a tower crane is just one piece of a very ambitious project. And the city's been working with the developers on the project, and we're also monitoring the progress of the project, which is what we agreed to in our master developer agreement.
Are they coming close to a time where there's trouble with that agreement in terms of the progress?
Well, what I've said is that we're monitoring it, and Derek Paulson, our Commissioner of Planning, that's his responsibility, and you can see the project from almost anywhere in the city, and I think it can be easily viewed, so we can see the progress of the project.
With Lexington Mayor Jim Gray newly reelected, we'll talk about his new council, his new vice mayor, and new priorities. We're coming back on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers in a moment.